Part 3 of my heraldic tour of the Canterbury Cathedral Cloister covers the 39 shields of Bay 11, which was constructed by my estimation between July and August 1410. Its position is the second bay of the West Walk. Look for the central boss charged with a fountain between two mullets. This is a 20th century addition, being the arms of Sir Felix Brunner from a family of Swiss descent. These are canting arms, Brunnen being a fountain in German. We now move to the bay as I believe it appeared at the end of the medieval period. The predominant theme is Archbishop Thomas Courtenay, his friends and relations. The Archbishop's arms impaling the Diocese of Canterbury appear twice in this bay at 13 and 17 to indicate a significant benefaction, this being the princely sum of £200 which he left under the terms of his will of 1396. The English Courtenays all bore the blue label over their three roundels or tourteaux to distinguish themselves from their French cousins. The origin of the arms in the 12th century is closely linked to the Crusades, and by tradition the roundels were taken from the arms of the family's kinsmen, who were Counts of Boulogne. Gibbon devoted a whole chapter to the Courtenays in his Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Like our royal family today, each member of the English Courtenay family, with a single known exception, apart from the eldest sons who inherited their paternal arms, added unique differences to the label. As they follow an obvious and logical pattern, most can be ascribed to individuals, even though the cloister is the only source for some of the examples. All the younger generation of the Courtenays are in the cloister, these being the three sons of Archbishop Courtenay's nephew, the Earl of Devon, and the three sons of his brother Philip Courtenay. The arms of the eldest son of the Earl had already been placed in Bay 7. His two younger brothers Hugh and James, with three lozenges and three cinquefoils on the label, are in Bay 11, next to each other. Sir William Courtenay, son of Philip, is also here with 9 fleurs-de-lis on the label, while the two younger brothers of the Archbishop, who lived long enough to be cloister donors, are also here. They are Sir Humphrey with 9 crescents and Sir John with 9 guts on the label. The arms of these two younger brothers were both placed near the Archbishop's cenotaph in Maidstone Church, where he had asked to be buried. Richard II, who had once violently struck Thomas Courtenay and put him in fear of his life, insisted on his burial at Canterbury. Archbishop Courtenay's sister Catherine is represented with the arms of her long-deceased husband, Lord Engaine, the last of his line, at 25. In her widowhood, Catherine often stayed with her brother at Maidstone. She was the only member of the Courtenay family known to have been admitted into the cathedral confraternity. An individual linked to the Lords Engaine was Richard Stukely at 35. I believe that the 3 pairs on Stukely's arms probably relate to the growing of this fruit at his manor of Merston in Sussex. A man described in Courtenay's will as his most faithful friend, and who acted as executor, was Prior Chillenden, and I'm fairly confident in being able to identify his arms at 20, although the tinctures are speculative. They comprise 3 chevrons between 3 mitres. Despite only ranking as priors, the heads of the Canterbury Cathedral Priory were men of great consequence, who habitually attended parliaments, and who were permitted to wear the mitre. I do not think Chillenden would have countenanced his arms being present without those of his priory, which almost certainly supplied the original central arms of the bay. Cardinal Archbishop Morton replaced them with his own goatee arms towards the end of the 15th century. John Framingham of Kent, at 29, held from the Archbishop by knight service, and was a member of Courtenay's familia and a beneficiary of his will. His arms have the ermine field adopted in earlier times by knights of the Archbishop, as does his kinsman William de Apulderfield, whose arms are at 18. The Culpeper arms with an ermine field at number 1 might well have belonged to the John Culpeper who served as steward of the Archbishop's lands under both Archbishop Courtenay and his successor, and who was another beneficiary of Courtenay's will. The undifferenced arms of his kinsman, the head of the family, Sir Thomas Culpeper of Bayhall in Kent, are at 16. Sir Thomas in turn was a kinsman of Ralph Green of Northamptonshire, whose arms are at 39. Sir Thomas Brockhull at 36 was an Archbishop's knight residing at Saltwood. Archbishop Courtenay, who rebuilt Saltwood Castle, must have known him well. John Wick of Somerset, whose arms are at 24, died the same year this bay was constructed. He was closely connected with the Courtenay and Boone families, Courtenay's mother being a Boone, and probably a cousin of the Archbishop. The cross of Moon at 28 and the quarterly arms of Vere at 30 and 37 might not be coincidentally present in this bay. Lady Moon was enabled to become a major benefactor of the cathedral through having sold Dunster Castle in Somerset to the Archbishop's sister Elizabeth Courtenay, then married to Andrew Luttrell, for 5,000 marks. Elizabeth's first husband was John de Vere, who would have been Earl of Oxford had he not predeceased his father. Altogether the arms of Vere occur 8 times in the cloister. The donor was Richard de Vere, Earl of Oxford, who was ward of Archbishop Arundel's sister Joan de Boone, who was married to Archbishop Courtenay's nephew, until he came of age in 1406. His family had a particular connection with St Edmund, whose arms of 3 crowns are in this bay at 38. The repetition here of the Vere arms twice suggests that a particularly generous benefaction had been made. His father could not have donated to the cloister, as he died in 1400. The arms of a chevron between 3 chess-rooks at 11 might have been placed here by the clerk Thomas Anlaby, a retainer of Joan de Boone, Countess of Hereford. The Yorkshire family of Anlaby apparently shared a common descent with the Hanlabys of Yorkshire, whose similar arms of a fess between 6 fleurs-de-lis are at number 27. The Hanlabys were in turn connected with the Rookbys, whose arms are in the adjacent bay 10. The final Courtenay associations are 2 further feudal retainers of the Archbishop, John de Kelsham at 32 and Sir John Creel or Kerriel at 3. The latter was an Archbishop's tenant by knight service at Sarr in Kent on the Isle of Thanet. Of the remaining shields in the bay, many of the donors had roles in the Lancastrian administration, which Archbishop Arundel for many years headed. The arms of Sansever at 7 are a widow's donation by Elizabeth Hussey, Lady Sansever, a kinswoman of Archbishop Arundel, who placed the arms of her 3 deceased husbands in 3 different bays. The Daundelin arms at 12 have been rendered in mirror image, like some others in Bay 10, which I have postulated was a way the Archbishop devised to show a widow's donation. John Mayhew at 19 was a royal ship's captain. The 3 crowns of his arms perhaps derived from the arms of St Edmund, as he was linked to Suffolk. John Crosby, who probably owned the arms at 34, was a yeoman of the royal chamber. John Kiddle of Hawkstow at 14 was a man busy in the service of Henry IV as a lawyer and married to the daughter of the judge Roger Fulthorpe. The Wakerley family, I have argued, served over a long period as royal wine tasters, which explains the golden cups on their arms at 22. Sir John Blunt at 33 was the son of the royal standard bearer Sir Walter Blunt, who died a hero's death on the battlefield of Shrewsbury in 1403. His mother's castle arms are in the first quarter in honorific transposition. She was the Castilian noblewoman Sancha de Ayala, who, it must be noted, was not an heiress, but was quite likely to have been of royal descent. The arms later appeared in the same fashion on Sir John's garter stall plate. His parents were sufficiently highly regarded for Prince Thomas to have founded a chantry in their name at St Mary in the Newark in Leicester. There is no doubting the royal connection of the ermine shield of the Dukes of Brittany at number 8, as the Queen was herself the Dowager Duchess of Brittany. There are reasons for supposing that these arms date back to the dawn of heraldry. John Hall of Dover at 5 was recently deceased and had carried the Cinque Ports canopy over Richard II at his coronation in 1377. His widow Isabel Isaac was the probable donor, and his shield represents Oberspill from a family grouping in Bay 10. It is uncertain whether the shield at 15 had silver escallops for the family of St Low of Lincolnshire, who were tenants of Archbishop Arundel's kinsmen the Beaumonts, or gold escallops for the Lincolnshire family of Chamberlain, who held from the Duchy of Lancaster. The arms with 3 bird bolts at 6 belong to an old Nottinghamshire knightly family called Boson, which means bird bolt in Old French. Lower of Yorkshire at 10 was a family of wool traders based at Frenchgate in Doncaster. Finally, we have the cross of the Knights Hospitaller at 12. The Grand Master of the Order, Philibert de Naylac, had visited England the previous year. Archbishop Arundel did not place Naylac's personal arms in the cloister. For some reason he placed a moratorium on foreign nobility, but the order had an English lang. You will find a great deal more information in the pages of my book, Great Cloister, A Lost Canterbury Tale, published by Archaeopress in 2020. It's more than just a book about the cloister, as it goes into considerable detail about each unique shield, tracing its origins. You will find here many of the great families of England up to the reign of Henry IV, and also the European kingdoms. It comprises over 700 pages, including 771 illustrations, 37 pedigrees and a detailed index. You are seeing here just a small selection of the pages. Shortly you will see on the screen details of how to find it. If you would like me to undertake research on your own family, I can be contacted via my personal website, drpaulfoxfsa.com. And finally, do please subscribe to my History and Heraldry channel on YouTube, which of course costs you nothing, so that you can follow additions to my list of talks.